The next presentation is by Tanya Ballal. She is a student of Human-Centered Design at SISCHI Institute of Art, Design and Technology. She is also a theatre practitioner and has co-founded Last Page Collective, which is a collective that encourages and provides a platform for budding theatre and movement practitioners in the city of Bangalore. Her paper on theatre and movement workshops as research tool has been accepted as a part of SRC at KAI 20, and she's going to present some of this work. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Deepak. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Tanya. Firstly, thank you, Samir and Raaghav, for those presentations. They were lovely. As Deepak mentioned, my paper, it's called Emote Theatre and Movement Workshops as Research Tools, has been selected for KAI 2020 as part of SRC. I'm yet to present to the jury members next week, so fingers crossed. As he mentioned, I'm part of this collective called Last Page Collective, and I've been in the dance scene for the past 12 years, and I've been in the theater scene for the past 3 to 4 years. In this collective, I conduct theater and movement workshops, and I've been conducting it for the past 1 year. And while conducting, there have been a lot of inspirations, a lot of events. So I'm going to just start sharing my screen. Yeah. So while conducting one of these workshops last year, I had given the participants an activity where they had to come up with a small skit to depict a restaurant. So within 5 minutes, they put up a scene where they had added characters, they had used props, enacted general actions done in a restaurant, as well as they use sounds that people would normally hear in a restaurant. So essentially, in the first 10 seconds of watching the scene, you could tell what the participants thought when someone utters the word restaurant. Amazing, isn't it? Just 10 seconds with no words, you can communicate so much just through actions and expressions. So that's pretty much how it all began. It hit me that I can utilize this method of using theater and movement in order to conduct primary research to understand users better. And in simpler words, research by decoding the body. Designing by understanding the body has also been mentioned in the book, The Encyclopedia of Human-Computer Interaction, under the topic of soma aesthetics. But in my paper, I am specifically talking about voluntarily making the body use elements of theater and movement in order to derive insights. Before going forward, I actually want to simplify theater and movement. What is it? It's a performing art, yes. But when you sort of dissect it, the main elements of it are body language, expressions, gestures, and actions. And utilizing these elements, we can understand the emotions, experiences, mental models, and feelings of a person. It's not like we don't do it anyway. When we talk to another person, taking hints from expressions and tone is something that we do even without realizing. Even researchers, for that matter, pick up on such qualitative data and try and analyze it. So I thought, why not design a workshop in such a way that people are given an opportunity to express their emotions and experiences through their body for the sole purpose of research. Understanding what people feel about products, services, and environments is extremely important so as to improve their interactions with it. This sort of workshop that I'm imagining would actually be useful to researchers when they are conducting primary research. The most common methods of primary research that we see and use include one-on-one interviews or even group interviews, surveys, or using of flashcards. But what happens often is that people become very conscious during these interviews, or people are not able to get their points across only with their words. It has happened to a lot of us. We often can't express our feelings and emotions, and sometimes we resort to expressions and actions. I would like to quote social psychologist Amy Cuddy here. She says, never mind what comes out of our mouths. The messages we send with our bodies are delivered at a much higher volume. Research also suggests that body expressions bring out um, the true meaning of one's feelings towards a particular subject. I felt that the exercises that theater and movement practitioners currently practice can be incorporated in the field of research to understand the users and design better products, environments, and interactions for them. Now that I mentioned theater and movement practitioners, the question arises as to how researchers or even participants who don't have any background in theater or movement can be a part of such a workshop. This takes me to my next point, being no, you don't have to be an expert. We all understand the language of the body. It comes naturally to us. No one taught us expressions, it just happened along the way. Research suggests that even blind people show the same expressions for emotions as that of sighted people. So now that we know that this is innate in us, we don't possibly need to be experts at a language we all understand. Now, I am sure that not all of you are convinced with the fact that anyone can conduct or be a part of the workshop. So I want to take a moment to look at one of the reasons why people might not be comfortable using their bodies. One of the reasons is hierarchy in education. Sir Ken Robinson, in one of his talks, describes how there's a hierarchy in the education system worldwide. The highest status is held by math and languages. Below that comes humanities, and even in the art, there is a hierarchy there as well. Higher status goes to music and art, and after that comes dance and drama. Why so? Why should we not give the same amount of importance to dance and drama like we would to math or languages? We instill such a mindset in young kids and toddlers. We also start taming these children in the name of discipline, saying, toddlers asked to sit still in class, don't move, sit behind your desks for hours, finger on your lips, back straight. From an early age, we're asked to restrict the language that comes naturally to us. Which is why if I ask you guys to ask me a question right now through just actions or expressions, most of you, if not all, will hesitate. But once you are put in that, uncomfortable situation and you have to do it, you have to sort of express with your body, then your body takes charge. And what comes after is your true emotion and your experiences being delivered without the usage of words. I want to take an example of one of my projects to make it more relatable. I was working on a project that looked at understanding the relationship between a grandparent and a grandchild. Here, understanding the emotions for each other is crucial. So I started out by talking to grandparents. Here is an image of a grandmother enacting her first memory with her grandchild. While decoding, notice that the image on the top left, I've zoomed in on her expression, where she is softly smiling and reminiscing. The bottom left is the action which tells us that her first ever memory was that of her carrying the baby. On the right hand side is, I'm trying to zoom out and look at her body language, where she is gently holding the baby. Her back is upright, neck is tilted, and eyes are focused on the baby, as if she was actually living that moment. Now that we've established the fact that even though people might feel uncomfortable, the body does take on the role of communicating. I want to get into the actual design of the workshop. To make it more, again, to make it more relatable, I will give examples of my own projects and activities. But sharing a lot of details will not be possible because it's this sort of promise that any theater or movement practitioner does at the beginning of the workshop, where they say that this is a safe space. I will get into that small bit of instruction towards the end of my talk. Yeah, the workshop is ideally divided into 3 phases: initiation, fast, and expectations. This sort of workshop style idea to understand behaviors has also been used by Daniel Coyle, a leading anthropologist who used to ask people to make collages with pictures or talk about certain topics in groups, so that he can build marketing strategies for the products or the companies that he's working for. This shows that such a method has been existing for quite some time. I also took inspiration from design thinking workshops, where we look at fears, assumptions, expectations while building whatever the topic is. So with this as inspiration, I started designing workshops that use the body as a tool. And before starting the first phase of it, I designed it in such a way that the first 10-15 minutes are used up for icebreaker activities. This I would like to call phase 0, because this does not really play a part in the actual project. It is mainly for the participants to feel at ease and be comfortable in the space around them. What happens is, as usually theater practitioners start off by just making the participants walk around the space, so that they start feeling comfortable. It can be followed by introductions, small games, and trust building exercises like trust falls, so that people start trusting each other, and not just each other as in the participants, but also trusting the researcher facilitating it and the space around them. Once the researcher feels like the participants have sort of warmed up, they can move on to the first phase. This phase ideally consists of easy individual activities, because people are getting accustomed to this still. Activities could include, just using expressions or actions to depict what they feel while the researcher asks them questions. It is totally up to the researcher to decide on the activities and the questions to suit their research needs. So, for example, I was working on a project that dealt with consumption of junk food. So I wanted to understand the notions around it. One of the questions that I asked people was to show me the quantity, of junk food they had in the past 1 week. So they literally just widened their hands to depict the amount of junk food they had. Another activity that I made them do was, do you feel, actually one of the other expressions that they gave was, after eating junk food, what is the sort of expression that, how would you feel? So that was my question to them. And a lot of them showed a sign of happiness, relief, but it was also filled with a little bit of guilt. A few people were just showing sad faces. So I asked them, why would you feel sad? So they enacted. So if you can see this picture here, he showed himself in front of a mirror, and he was trying to say that, once I look at the mirror, I start feeling sad. So yeah. The second phase of the workshop includes past experiences and could involve smaller group or duet activities. Such activities could include, freeze frame, where both of them play a part of the picture to depict something, or where one person becomes the puppet and the other becomes the puppeteer to enact their experiences. For example, my project, which involved the same project, which involved understanding the relationship between grandparents and grandchildren, I divided them into groups of twos and asked them to show me their favorite activity that they do or they did with their grandparents. Note that all the participants that I was dealing with were all grandchildren, and they were, at about the age of, 15 to 30 years. Each person got a chance to depict their favorite activity with their partner. So after a few seconds of discussion between the twos, one person acted as the grandchild and the other as the grandparent, and they did activities like sitting and listening to stories narrated by grandmothers, or cooking, or playing with their grandmothers, which was showcased by the participants. This way, duet exercises, it makes it easier to express. It also makes it fun and interesting. And you can also really see the emotion that lies behind, when you're actually sitting down and listening to your grandmother, you can really see them smile and, do the action. Phase 3 actually involves larger groups. If it's a group of, say, 10, then we can divide it into, say, 2 groups of 5 each and allow them to come up with their own small skits. And within a few minutes around, the topic that's given by the researcher. So this will allow a person to instantly understand the experience like that of the space that I was talking about. Like I had given the example of the restaurant at the beginning of my talk. Another example that I would like to give you is of politics and its effect on people. So for this, I had asked people to create different stills as well as come up with a short skit. So the skit and stills portrayed how they felt politics was, a twisted game that plays with a lot of lives. The content that they put out was extremely powerful and depicted their views on various issues and parties. So you can see there can be different questions and various activities and the way participants respond to these questions that can provide useful information and insights. I know that a lot of you might be waiting to listen to the insights from these activities. So again, as I mentioned a few minutes back, I'm not allowed to reveal information about the content that was put out through the skits or the activities, mainly because the first sort of instruction that as a facilitator I give out is this is a safe space and nothing you say here will be disclosed anywhere else. But I do want, and I would like to, honor that. But what I want to share with you is that every activity that I have conducted, I have received various insights and confirmed or disproved certain biases or assumptions that I've had. Decoding and analyzing the qualitative data. This step is crucial for any researcher. Qualitative data is, often hard to interpret, especially in the scenario where, you have been bombarded with so much data and from so many participants. So in this case, I do recommend that the researcher actually be a part of the workshop, even while they are facilitating it. Being a part, as in once they have given instructions about the activity to be done, they can be a part of the process that the participants follow so that they understand how they went about it and what are the ideas thrown about while completing the task. This is important as it allows the researcher to get an idea about what are the notions surrounding a particular topic. The researcher could jot these down on paper during the workshop, and I would highly recommend recording these sessions, as it is, nearly impossible for a single or even 2 researchers to be able to pick up on, so many expressions and actions of all the participants. Once the workshop is done, ideally mapping it to their past experience, which was done in phase 2, will help them in understanding the general mental models of the users. Also making note of their expectations and trying to see how feasible and appropriate it is in your context, and then design further, making sure that you have participants from different communities, backgrounds, regions, from your target audience, and also making it an inclusive space are just some general workshop rules that apply everywhere. I would actually like to again stress on the fact that this is, quite an informal workshop, and anyone and everyone can be a part of it, and the researcher can facilitate it in the way, in any way they wish, in order to suit their research needs. So yeah, that's that. I would like to conclude by just saying it in like 2 lines probably, by saying that I think it's been this process of understanding it through theater and movement has been very interesting, and every time you do this workshop, it just you just find something completely new. So it's an ongoing process, and it's a good switch from the traditional one-on-one interviews that people already have. So yeah, thank you. I'm open to questions.
So yeah, Tanya, that was a
Yes.
lovely presentation. Thank you so
very
much. So we'll
Yeah.
go to the audience's questions.
Yes.
So the first question is, what is the fundamental difference between body storming with script and the process you have proposed?
Sorry?
What is the fundamental difference between body storming with script and the process you have proposed?
So body storming with script is actually, if I'm not mistaken, you are sort of implementing whatever, like you're checking if this is what it is, and you are sort of role playing it, or sort of solutioning it. But what I'm trying to do is the primary research aspect of it, where there is no script as such, but the participants, you as a facilitator, you are sitting back and you are looking at others to give you a script, right? So it's a very, it could be, it is sort of similar, of course, but again, you're not it's very, it's as it says, that is very scripted. This is, in the process you are scripting it. You're looking at what can happen, what doesn't have to, what can't happen. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. We'll go to the next question. Do you think having grown up with varied socio-cultural backgrounds would have an impact on what certain gestures or body language are interpreted as? How do we account for those?
Absolutely. So there will be a definite difference in, whatever gestures you're doing, or anything, or expressions for that matter. But the basic gestures and expressions, as I said, even blind people have the same expressions as that of sighted people. The basic expressions will remain the same. And even if you have grown up in a different region or whatever, you will still be able to convey it to another person, because that's how powerful body language is. And that's how, and even if you're not able to convey it to the other person, then the body will keep trying to convey it to the other person. So even though there'll certainly be changes, differences, but it's not impossible to convey, through your gestures. There will be, it's 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 sort of like, you can't really explain it. It's just like you just understand it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Are there specific types of research problems this method is more suitable for than others?
Right, yeah. So it, again, as I said, it all depends on the context, and it depends on the researcher. but I can't tell you what this won't be applicable to, or how it might not be applicable to. Certain technical problems or like scientific stuff that you want to research, explaining that with your body would be very hard, right? Because you yourself would not be clear, and then explaining it with the body would be extremely hard. Also, topics that really involve understanding the emotions of another person. I think this would be an ideal way to go about it. Like understanding the emotion of, what do people feel about the current government or the current, an issue. So those are the kind of feelings and emotions. So those are the kind of things, or relationships. The example that I gave, grandparent and grandchild. So those are the kind of topics that would suit this sort of method.
Okay, thank you. And to the next question, since the results are visual and visceral, what do you do in case two researchers interpret the same movement differently?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Since the results are visual and visceral, what do you do in case two researchers interpret the same movement differently?
So it's not about. I think it's more about understanding what the participant is trying to get out of it. So if you have interpreted it differently, then you can always go back to the participant and ask them, because it's not an isolated thing. Right? You're not just going to say, okay, he's done this. Now we're going to decode this, and there's a difference between us, but we're not going to go back to the participant. No, of course we can go back to the participant and actually clear what it is. But at the end of the day, I've not really seen differences as of an issue, mainly because it's been quite simple in the sense that there are always discussions that happen after each phase, just to debrief it. Or also, when you see a person enact it, you have a discussion with another person and you say, okay, this is this, and then you always, sort of reconfirm it with the participant, because that's how you're sort of decoding it, right? So as I said, it's not an isolated thing where you're just decoding it from what you're looking at. So yeah.
Thank you. And now moving on to the last question. During testing times such as current crisis, how can we still exploit data to not only relieve our emotions but also for your proposed method? Is there a way to carry this out during social distancing?
Absolutely. I was actually expecting this question. I actually had a small discussion on this a few days back, and I'm still trying to see how I can implement this method online. And as per what I think we can still implement this. You can still go on a Zoom chat like this and then ask people to, ask them questions and then make them, respond with expressions and actions and gestures. What will be hard is, doing the whole duet exercises or doing the group exercises where they have to literally be with each other to, enact it. But you can, they can have the whole discussion online and say, okay, you be this character, you can be this character, and the actions that they do don't have to necessarily be with each other. They can be isolated and still be doing playing their part. So it is possible, but I'm still sort of about how the physically being present there really makes a huge difference. So but yeah, I'm still looking at trying to see how we can make this method fully online. And,
Thank you so much, Tanya.
thank you, Raaghav. Thank you, guys.
All the best for SRC Zuri.
Yes, I need that. Thank you.
Well, that's the end of today's meet. It's lovely seeing you all. Please stay home, stay happy, stay safe. My special thanks to the invited speakers for joining us. It was really amazing to have you. I also thank Rupam, Nishita, and Raaghav for co-organizing the meeting and clustering and moderating the Q&As. Well, the next meet is on 30th May